It's finally happened. Something has broken on the Range Rover. Not actually a big problem, to be fair, but my reverse camera's packed up. So I'm going to have a go at repairing it today, because this is the 2010 facelift model. There don't seem to be any cheap alternatives like there are for all the other previous L322s. I'll show you what the problem is. I'll turn the ignition on and turn that down, and then when we engage reverse, either a blizzard is creeping up on me or my camera's broken, which is a bit disappointing. But it does work. There is something there, although you can't see it in the daylight. At night, there is a kind of what looks almost like a heat map there. So definitely there is some signal coming from it. We've definitely got power. I'm going to dismantle it and see if I can find out what's wrong. Got nothing to lose, have I? This is useless now. So I'm going to have a go at doing a bit of a camera teardown video, and if I can fix it, show you how to do yours. Right, having stripped the camera out of the car, you can see this is the facelift. As I said before, it's the 2010 facelift model L322 camera. There are companies that do replacement cameras. You can buy them from Land Rover for the L322, but only, it seems, up to 2009. And they're pretty reasonably priced, like 120 quid, something like that. Not a great deal of money, and a well worthwhile repair. 2010 facelift, I've seen these for £500, and they're totally different to the 2009. Mostly from the outside, as far as I can tell, it's down to this connector. So these connectors seem to be sort of further in on much longer tails on the 2002 to 2009 models. This one, it's more modular. It's got a short tail going through with a single connector into the camera, which obviously does, I don't know if you can actually see, just inside here we've got the live and earth pins. I don't know which way around they are. And then obviously your video on this sort of BNC or FACRA type connector. And hopefully you can see that. But anyway, that seems to be the same. So the basic premise is the same camera, but it's been changed. And I kind of hope that it's been changed because it's a better quality. I mean, they're known for not being particularly good. But bear in mind, I mean, I think the reverse camera came out in about 2004, maybe. That's some pretty old tech now. And the fact that you had a camera at all was cutting edge in its day, wasn't it? But even this one, you know, 2010 car, it's now 12-year-old tech. I guess if you take the design and everything else into account, that's probably 4 or 5 years prior to that. So, yeah, we could be looking at 15, 17-year-old technology here. Anyway, so mine's been in the car's 12 years old. I assume this is the original one. And I decided there's nothing to lose by dismantling it and getting the top spoiler off. Is really not difficult. You know, you just pull down the bit of trim. There's 3 bolts. You disconnect the wiring for your stop light and the 2 for the camera, and then slide the thing off the top. And there's enough videos on that to show you how to do it. From there, you have to release this from the plastic housing that it sits in, which is riveted to the underside of that spoiler, that roof spoiler piece. And you can see here there are 2 cutouts which are now slightly burred up because I didn't know how they came out, so I went at it. And what actually happens is there's a small clip here. You should slide a very thin blade downwards on this to release the detent on each side, and then slide the camera in the direction of that, so it's sort of 45 degrees from the way it comes out. Obviously, as I say, mine is now a little bit burred up, but, well, I figured I had nothing to lose anyway. So once I've disconnected that, excuse me, there are 4 screws in the corners here, and they are, I think, a T8 Torx. And so I think that because I've got a small set of these, and this is the one where all the printers worn off to tell me what size it is. But I've got 5 and 6. They're definitely too small. I don't think I had a 7, so it's probably an 8. And then you can unscrew the back of the camera. So these 4. Typically, 2 of them didn't want to come out, so I had to drill them out. I'll find a way of sealing it up anyway. But as I suspected, when I lift this off, let's actually do this in 2 parts. So there's a back cover, fair enough, nothing particularly advanced in that. There's a rubber seal here, which clearly no longer works, which I can remove. And then this piece is just sort of over the back of the camera, and it allows you to connect the wiring in. But what you'll see is that these 2 pins, the power and the earth, they actually go through 2 holes here. So that keeps them separate. It also guides the connector onto it, and we need to be very, very careful when we put this back together. The keen-eyed among you are going to spot this evident copper corrosion. Hence I say the seal doesn't work. Well, look at the state of this. Absolutely thick in corrosion, where it's clearly been getting damp in there. So my hope is that I'm going to be able to unscrew this, take the camera out, find some poor solder joints, tin them up again, and have a working camera. If I'm successful, this video will get released. If I'm not, you won't be watching it. So that tells you there's a bit of a spoiler there, isn't it? Now I'm going to find out whether I'm right. So again, T8, I think. And there we go. Oh wow, okay. Now this is very different actually. Oops. So inside the camera, the lens is there, and the actual circuit board comes off the back of the lens, revealing the CMOS sensor there. That's an unusual way to build that. Let's put my screws down there and then have a look and see if we can see anything obvious. Sadly not. Well, I'm going to go away and heat this with a soldering iron and just attempt to retin some of these connections, I think. And then I'll be back. Okay, so I've heated it. I did it with my little soldering iron, it's like a gas-powered soldering iron with a little burner attachment on the end of it. And in full disclosure, it didn't work. It was useless. So, well, I say it was useless. It was marginally improved. It was very, very slightly more visible afterwards. So I kind of thought, well, what I really need is a better source of heat for one of these. And I've got here this very old, very cheap hot air gun, 1600 watt. I think it came out of B&Q probably 20 years ago. Anyway, low setting, and just sat there warming constantly with this thing in the vise. And got it really, really hot. Probably, I guess by that point I was a little bit irresponsible with it, because, you know, it's junk anyway, right? It doesn't matter, it doesn't work, we've got nothing to lose. but it did suddenly start to brighten up some of the solder joints. I don't know if they're very obvious. Like here, it's quite shiny. If I can catch that right in the light, it's starting to look like a really good joint. We've got a couple of here still that look quite dry, and I guess more obviously, I'm trying to do this left-handed here, and these ones, just generally looks a lot brighter. And I did heat the camera lens quite a bit as well to try and sort of reflow any of these pins. I mean, I don't know how many of these are actually connected, but that's a lot. Now I'm going to just pop the whole thing back together again. Let me get my very fine lint-free microfiber and wipe this lens off. Make sure we've got nothing worse than an enormous piece of fluff across the screen of that, but it looks nice and clean now. The camera lens is good and clean. We'll cover it up. Which did make me think, when it didn't work the first time, I thought to myself, do you know what? There might be a video on fitting a cheap Chinese camera from eBay in the back of an L322 to resolve your camera woes. But if this works, I'd definitely rather have the factory equipment in the car. I'm going to nip those up, drop the unit back in. Oh good, it's got a keyway, so there's a register here on the outside of this casting, which goes with the one in there, so you really can't get it in upside down. He says. There's a bit of resistance on that, so there must be a rubber seal in there. Oh yeah, there is. Yeah, there's a rubber seal on that. We might have to lubricate that a bit and see what happens. With perhaps a bit of silicone spray or WD-40 or a bit of saliva. Not the most hygienic, but certainly effective. There we go. I'm going to pop this, what there is of this rubber seal, back in, I think, and then probably seal it up with a bit of mastic. And I'm going to have to super glue that back piece back on, aren't I? I've still got half a screw in here, which I can't get out, and I don't really want to butcher the case any further. Yeah, you can see this rubber seal is really stretched, and it's quite flat. It's really failed over time, but that's the nature of rubber, isn't it? It does that. I'm starting to wonder if I should have checked if it went a specific way up. And we'll drop our cover back on, being very careful to make sure that these two pins go through the two holes. Oh, that was easy. Okay, so I'm going to go and screw that back together. Find a way of sealing this nicely to keep the moisture out. Pop the whole thing back in the car, and well, it'll be but a second or two as far as you're concerned. Right, that's the car all put back together again then. Camera's back in, roof spoiler's back on. Didn't bother filming any of that. Now it's time to test it. Flick the ignition on, turn down the radio, select reverse, smug face. Look at that. I mean, it's blurry and it's not great, but it's as good as it was before it broke. So that's it. I've got reverse camera again. So actually, I'm very pleased with that. And I can see one of my neighbour's guests getting in the boot of their car. Oh, got something out of a Bond movie. So there we go. I'll turn that off. So what have we learned? I guess really, when it's broken, you've got nothing to lose by trying it. That's really the lesson there, isn't it? I was very lucky. Managed to heat it. Obviously sorted out whatever dry joint was on the board that was causing that problem. And yeah, it's fixed for now. Another L322 win at zero cost. Well, I think we'll leave it there. I wish you all the best. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.